Breaking tonight, debate number 11 is in the books, and it was perhaps the roughest yet, leaving the remaining 4 Republican presidential hopefuls a bit bloodied and bruised, just 48 hours before the next big contests in campaign 2016. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly, reporting tonight live from Detroit, where earlier Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio launched an all-out assault looking to derail the frontrunner in this race, Donald Trump. Ohio Governor John Kasich largely attempted to stay out of the fray. The debate coming just hours after 2012 Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney suggested that Mr. Trump has no business being the leader of the free world. And that loomed large over tonight's proceedings. Here is just a bit of what we witnessed.
This campaign for the last year, Donald Trump has basically mocked everybody with personal attacks. The media has given these personal attacks an incredible amount of coverage. Let's start talking again about the issues that matter to this country. I'm ready to do that starting right here, right now, tonight.
I also happen to call him a lightweight. I would like to take that back. He's really not that much of a lightweight. He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee
I don't think the people of America are interested in a bunch of bickering school children. They're interested in solutions, not slogans. It's easy to say, make things better, make things great.
Throughout this campaign, I've talked about issues. I have never tried to go and get into these kind of scrums that we're seeing here on the stage, and people say everywhere I go, you seem to be the adult on the stage.
I beat Hillary Clinton in many polls.
If you're our nominee,
excuse me, I think I'm talking.
Hold on,
excuse me.
I beat Hillary Clinton in
Hold on.
I hope you can.
The audience cannot understand when you're talking over each other. Finish your point, Mr. Trump.
I would like it clear, though, since we're talking about polls, I beat Hillary Clinton by more than anybody, by 11 points. And the reason it happens...
In one poll. In one poll.
You know, the reason is because, as the Democrats tell me all the time, I can get the crossover votes.
I understand the folks who are supporting Donald right now. You're angry at Washington, and he uses angry rhetoric. But for 40 years, Donald has been part of the corruption in Washington that you're angry about. You're not going to stop the corruption and the cronyism by supporting someone who has used government power for private gain. Instead, we need a president who stands with the American people.
We have a big show for you tonight, complete with Charles Krauthammer and fresh off the debate stage, presidential candidate and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Plus, Chris Stirewalt and Howie Kurtz are here. We'll also be joined by Guy Benson, Dana Lash, and Charlie Hurt, as well as former White House insiders Bill Burton and Mark Thiessen. But we begin with Frank Luntz and his focus group. Frank?
Megyn, I don't know how happy y'all at Fox are going to be, but I want a word or phrase to describe tonight's debate, and I'm going to start in the second row.
Sophomoric. Embarrassment.
Disappointing.
Shameful.
Despicable.
Angering.
Low on substance. Disgusting.
Schoolyard brawl.
Okay, now this ain't good, because there are millions and millions of people who watch the debate tonight, and this is the most negative response I've had. I got one more question. By a show of hands, how many of you thought this helped the Republican Party, what they saw tonight across the country? Raise your hands if it helped the GOP. None of you. So what's the problem? What's your anger? Explain it to me.
They're not getting their points across. They're not telling us about what they want to do as president.
They're giving soundbite fuel for the Democrats.
I think it's a lot of baiting by the moderators at times, Frank.
They're constantly attacking Donald Trump.
Oh, so they're attacking Donald Trump,
yes.
And that's the reason why you're unhappy.
Cruz are sandwiching him for the last 2 debates.
Megyn, I want you to watch this. How many of you walked in here, be honest, how many of you walked in here supporting Donald Trump? Raise your hands. How many of you thought Donald Trump won the debate tonight? Raise your hands. One person. Who thought John Kasich won? Remarkable. Tell me why.
He came across as succinct and on point.
Why Kasich?
He was the only adult in the room.
Wow. Why Kasich?
He was mature, he presented sound answers, and he spoke like somebody who's done it before.
So, Megyn, I want you to see, we're going to start with first the negative, what went wrong tonight, the battle between the major candidates. Let's take a look at one of the lowest moments of any debate during this entire election cycle.
That's why Trump University is so relevant here. I saw this video last week where he's sitting in front of a camera saying, we're going to hire the best people, and I'm going to handpick them, and they're going to be handpicked instructors, the best instructors in the world. One of them, by the way, was a manager at a Buffalo Wild Wing. And that's who they hired to do this. And people borrowed money, and they signed up for this fake university. And these people owe all of this money now, and they got nothing in return for it, but you were willing to say whatever you had to say to get them to give you their money.
The people of Florida can't stand him. He couldn't get elected dog catcher.
Let me just ask the voters at home, is this the debate you want playing out in the general election?
I mean, that was the high. It's amazing to me. We've never tested something so low. How old are you?
18.
So this is your first vote ever?
Yes.
What was the problem with this?
He's dividing our party instead of uniting it, and I came here as a Rubio supporter. So it's really frustrating to hear someone say that.
In the back.
They're fighting instead of discussing policy, and it's way past time for that. We should be going on to find out who's presidential.
One more.
There's too much desperation in Rubio right now, and it's time for him and Cruz to team up together to get something done.
But I want to focus on John Kasich. I want you to play the clip that absolutely scored through the roof. John Kasich's a governor, and yet it was his comments on foreign policy using the dials that scored better than anything else. Let's take a look.
Now, you got to be on the ground and in the air, both in Syria and Iraq, and at some point we will have to deal with Libya. I am very concerned about ISIS getting their hands on the oil fields of Libya and being able to fund their operations. The fact is, cool, calm, deliberate, effective, take care of the job, and then come home. That's what we need to do with our military foreign policy.
They used these dials that scored about a 90. What was so positive about it?
I just felt that he was very mature. He was relaxed. One thing that really impressed me is he was not drawn into this little kindergarten debate.
What was it about Kasich?
He did a great job talking about his experiences, his plans, what he would actually do to change the things in the country and the world as far as safety and all of his policies.
So even though that was a very high-tested moment, Megan, that wasn't the #1 moment of tonight. When we come back a little bit later, we're going to show you the single highest dialed tested clip, and I'm also going to explain to you why I'm holding these Donald Trump sneakers, one of a kind, because they're for you. The next time I see you, I'm going to give you an autographed pair.
I'm going to look like you, Frank, walking around in your sneakers all the time. I could use a pair of those. Thank you, sir. And thank you to the focus group. We'll be right back to you. Joining me now with his thoughts, Charles Krauthammer, a syndicated columnist, Fox News contributor as well. Charles, what'd you think?
Well, I don't think I've ever heard a debate with less discussion of policy. And it wasn't because the moderators didn't ask about policy, but the entire debate, except for the Kasich parts, since he was left out of the food fight, I think Trump saw no reason to hit him. The rest of the debate was entirely about mostly ad hominems, but attacks going left and right. And it was a complete assault on Trump from left and right, from Cruz and Rubio, that scored, I thought, a lot of points. Now, the caveat here is that this has happened before, not quite to this extent, and it hasn't left a mark on Trump. I think his supporters are going to think that he was ganged up on and he defended himself. I think those less inclined to support Trump are going to feel that his responses were mostly ad hominem, and there was a kind of impatience and condescension in his demeanor. I don't think it's going to in any way diminish Trump's numbers, but there is one thing. When you're the front runner, when you've had as good a day as he did on Super Tuesday, you develop the bandwagon effect and a kind of inevitability, and you bring in outsiders. If this debate had any effect, I think it might make those wavering and inclined to jump on the bandwagon think twice. As for Cruz and Rubio themselves, Cruz, I thought, came out with the most opportunity to speak for himself, even though he constantly ended up trying to turn it into an attack on Trump. So he might have had the edge. In the end, Kasich, I think, because he stood on the outside as if he was looking in and could make the positive case to play the grown-up and to be the unifier, he might have had the biggest advantage out of tonight.
We've talked before about how sometimes in these presidential campaigns, you see two candidates sniping at each other, and it winds up being sort of a kamikaze mission for the one doing the attacking, because he might hurt the man he's attacking, but he takes out himself in the process. Do you think John Kasich could be the beneficiary of that?
He can, but remember, he's so far down. I think on Super Tuesday, he was 5th in more than half of the races, that I don't know that in the end it increases his chances of winning the presidency. It might increase his chances of winning Ohio, which would be an opportunity to put something of a dent on the idea of Trump marching to the nomination. But the kamikaze effect is well known. Look what happened to Chris Christie. He landed the biggest blow on Rubio in New Hampshire, and he was out of the race a few days later. The classic case is 2004 in Iowa, the Democratic primary, where John Kerry just sort of sat quietly while the two front runners, Gephardt and Howard Dean, crushed each other on the air and destroyed each other, and he walked right through the middle. So I think that was the Kasich effect today.
Let me ask you about Trump, because, man, is he under attack. You had the Mitt Romney extraordinary thing today. You had 2 out of the 3 guys on that stage coming after him. No matter what we asked them, it was back to Trump, back to Trump. And yes, he sniped at them somewhat, because I'm sure he was irritated that that kept happening. But think of, how do you think he presented given the enormous pressure he was under? I thought, certainly in the first half of the debate in particular, we saw a man who was pretty cool. He was keeping his cool pretty well. Am I wrong?
Well, when you're saying a little Marco Rubio, and you're saying that my hands are so large and the rest of me is as well, you're not. Yeah, it makes them laugh, but this is not Lincoln Douglas. It isn't even Kennedy Nixon. But no, I thought he held his own. And look, I think the reason that you had this enormous attack on Trump is because of kind of a pent-up demand. The guy had all of these issues hanging around his neck. Trump University, bringing in outside foreigners to work on his hotels, the idea that he supported the Democrats, the flip-flops, the fact that his numbers on taxes didn't add up. All of that has been around for 6 months and was rarely ever brought up because the other candidates are either afraid of Trump or thought strategically, like Bush, that I'll drop all my money attacking Rubio and create the lane for me. So this is like 6 months of silence for a guy with huge vulnerabilities that were not actually exploited. And now time is running out. It's a matter of 2 weeks. If by the 15th of March, Rubio hasn't won Florida and Ohio has not gone to Kasich, it is likely over. So all this stuff is being crammed in, and that's why it looked like overkill.
Well, we shall see if they are vulnerabilities or not. Trump has motivated a huge group of support in this country who are very loyal to him. It's a loyalty all the other candidates are envious of. So we'll know in the coming days. Charles, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
We've got a jam-packed Kelly file still to come at the site of a raucous GOP debate. Chris Steyerwalt and Howie Kurtz are next on the R-rated moments of the night. Plus, White House insiders Bill Burton and Mark Thiessen ahead on the immigration issue. And up next, Senator Ted Cruz joins us on the high marks he just got from the focus group and what he thinks about what just happened on stage.
Donald Trump in 2008 wrote 4 checks to elect Hillary Clinton as president. So I'd like to ask Donald, why did you write checks to Hillary Clinton to be president in 2008? It wasn't for business. And how can you stand on a debate stage now with her and say you don't think she should be president?
Actually,
for 40 years, Donald has been part of the corruption in Washington that you're angry about.
I have been supporting people for many years, and these people have been politicians, and they've been on both sides, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. I've supported everybody, because until recently, I wasn't a politician.
Donald Trump in 2008 wrote 4 checks to elect Hillary Clinton as president. So I'd like to ask Donald, why did you write checks to Hillary Clinton to be president in 2008? It wasn't for business. And how can you stand on a debate stage now with her and say you don't think she should be president?
Actually, it was for business. It was.
That exchange between Senator Ted Cruz and businessman Donald Trump earned the senator some very high marks from debate watchers tonight. and presidential candidate and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz joins me right now. Senator, great to see you.
Megan, great to be with you.
That was a new line of attack. We haven't heard that one from you before. I mean, are you surprised that point has not yet come up?
Well, you know, it's actually interesting. For most of this primary, a lot of candidates have been using kid gloves towards Donald. And as we've seen the field narrow, I think people are really focused on what is the record of a candidate. And listen, Donald has tapped into something very real. People are furious. I mean, they're volcanic with their frustration with Washington. And what they're tired of is all these politicians who lie to us. They give a great talk on the campaign trail, and they do exactly the opposite of what they said they would do. But that frustration, I mean, the point I was making there is, listen, Donald has been doing that. He has been the one funding those politicians. If you don't like Obamacare, Donald funded Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and the politicians that gave us.
His position is, I'm running a big business. I employ thousands and thousands of people. What I need to do is what's best for my business.
That may be true if he's giving contributions to a city commission that gives zoning variances to build a building. I mean, he's a real estate
Hillary
developer.
Clinton was a New York State senator.
But he wasn't
a senator from New York State.
But look, when it comes to supporting presidential candidates, that's not impacting his business. You don't have to do that. He could have supported whoever he wanted. And by the way, he supported Jimmy Carter over Ronald Reagan. He supported John Kerry over George W. Bush.
To Republicans, though, as well. If you look back at his record, he gave a lot of money to Republicans.
But if you look back, let's take, for example, 2006, when the Democrats took over Congress. Donald gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to help put Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi in charge of Congress. And by the way, the existing leadership in Congress was Republican. So not only was that not helping his business, it was against his business interests. He was taking on incumbents.
His
and
Republican
that shows
donations picked up in the last 8 years or so. I want to ask you about today's news.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney, the speech he gave denouncing Donald Trump, did he have a point that Marco Rubio needs to win Florida, John Kasich needs to win Ohio, for you or any of the others to have a path other than Donald Trump?
Listen, I think Super Tuesday has revealed pretty powerfully that the only candidate who has a path to beating Donald Trump is me.
But not straight out, not without a contested convention.
Absolutely straight out. This contested convention nonsense is something the GOP establishment loves to talk about. Let me say right now, if the power brokers in the GOP try to pick the nominee at a brokered convention, you will see the people revolt. It is the dumbest idea, and it's what the lobbyists have come up with because they don't understand why the voters aren't voting for the candidates they like. If you look at this race so far, we have beaten Donald in 5 different states. We beat him resoundingly in Iowa. We beat him in Texas resoundingly. We beat him in Oklahoma. We beat him in Alaska. And we beat him in Minnesota. No other campaign has done that. So for anyone who wants to stop Donald Trump, it is abundantly clear that we're the only campaign to do it. And if you look at delegates,
question, because they're wrapping me.
Donald has just over 300 delegates. I've got just over 200. There's less than 100 delegates. If you want to beat Donald, come with us, and it's why so many people who are supporting other candidates are doing
question. The focus group was very negative on the negative tone among the candidates on the stage. They don't like the sniping. What would you say to those people who are feeling dejected about that tonight?
I very much agree, and I think there was a real difference. Listen, Donald and Marco were insulting each other. They were getting personal. They were getting nasty. They were talking about body parts and making profane jokes. I haven't done that. I don't intend to do that. I think there's a big difference between insults and going into the gutter and focusing on issues and substance. And let me make a final point here, Megan.
I got to go.
Which is Donald stressed flexibility. He kept saying he'd be flexible. In fact, on the stage, he said he agreed with Marco Rubio's decision to be flexible and negotiate the Gang of 8 amnesty bill. Flexibility is Washington code word for he's getting ready to stick it to the voters and break his word.
Got to leave it at that.
And that ought to be a real warning sign to the voters.
Great to see you, Senator.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks for being here tonight. Well, the attacks we saw tonight took an unexpectedly personal turn at times. You just heard the senator acknowledge that. Howie Kurtz and Chris Stirewall are next on that. Plus, we check back in with our Frank Luntz focus group on the moment that earned a big thumbs up.
I beat her today in a poll in Ohio. I'm the only one that beats Hillary Clinton. I beat her, and I have not started on Hillary yet. Believe me, I will start soon. I haven't even started. I have to say this. He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right. Okay.
Moving on.
Oh, my Lord at Christmas. Donald Trump's defense of his hands, among other things, was just one of many strangely personal moments we saw unfold on the stage tonight. Chris Stirewalt is our Fox News digital politics editor, and Howard Kurtz is the host of Fox News Media Buzz. Stirewalt, you cannot make it up.
Yeah, I tell you what, I don't know whether it was Washington or Lincoln who made the first reference to the size of their anatomy in the presidential set. I mean, I will say this. When you've said that, it kind of doesn't matter anything else that you say in the entire debate. You break the internet, the whole world like falls to pieces. And it's sort of an analogy, if you think about it this way, for this whole cycle, which is Donald Trump says something totally bonkers, and everybody looks at it, and then the discussion shifts off and you don't talk about anything else.
Quick point about journalism. I was downstairs watching Trump work the press room, and 1/3 of the questions were about his anatomy. CNN's Dana Bash saying, what about you know what? And Trump deflected it and made a joke about it. And it's the viral moment of the debate, which means that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio didn't get the viral moment.
That's true. I don't know. The crowd here laughed and thought it was funny.
Yeah.
You know, it was sort of a lighthearted moment, but I understand a lot of people don't feel that way. What was your big moment of the debate?
I thought the moment of the debate was when you played the video montage for Donald Trump, as you guys had for Cruz and Rubio in the Iowa debate that Trump skipped. And you asked him about what is his core. People are concerned about his core. Because he acknowledged, rather definitely, I thought, that he had shifted positions. He said it was new information. And he said, well, I have a core, but you have to be flexible. And, of course, the other two piled on that. I thought Cruz and Rubio suffered a little bit from recycling some of their attacks. Not all. But I thought that was the moment. If you like Donald Trump, you say, well, yeah, he makes deals. That's what I want in a president. If you don't like Donald Trump, you say, what does he stand for?
He handled that very well. And that was actually... That was the videotape question. Stirewalt knows because we work on the debate together. Yeah, that was the moment that I wanted to play for him at the last debate that we didn't get to play. I thought he handled it very well.
And he took them in turns. He went through each one. He said, you know, yeah, this is what I did. And he was cognizant of the discussion. So he didn't just try to blow it off. And I thought that was a good moment for him.
It was respectful. I thought he and I both had respectful exchanges. But I want to ask you, Chris, about what we saw with the focus group and Crowdhammer. Just feeling... just sad about what they saw on that stage tonight, about the way they attacked each other. Your thoughts?
Well, look, leaving aside Mr. Trump's presidential timber,
it's late.
Look, John Kasich had a good night. Ted Cruz had a good night. Marco Rubio, I talked to him backstage. He's sick as a dog.
He's very sick.
I mean, that flu had him on the ropes bad.
Yep.
But the point is this: we're at a historic moment. We're at a hinge point in the history of the Republican Party. There's a populist, moderate, liberal in some ways movement that Donald Trump is leading. It's angry and it's changing the shape of the Republican Party. And half of the Republican Party is trying to break away from that. The party might actually divide itself. These things are actually taking place. In the middle of all of this discussion, I did not see much on that stage to encourage me or any American to think that, oh, okay, they're going to sort this out. This is going to be okay. Because whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, the health of the republic depends on the health of the two parties in the system.
And one of the parties may be breaking.
Trump took all the incoming, but he was restrained for most of the night, except for the moment early on when Marco Rubio got under his skin with one of the attacks and he started talking about little Marco. But then he recovered his equilibrium, and I think that was important for him because he does not want to, he's trying to project a slightly more presidential image than certainly that last insult fest of a debate.
Great to see you both.
You bet. Here, Megan.
Well, earlier tonight, Frank Luntz told us that there was a moment that tested very high with the voters in the focus group. What was it? Back again, Frank Luntz and the focus group.
So, Megan, it wasn't actually John Kasich who did incredibly well tonight. It was from the senator from Texas, and he addressed an issue that is near and dear to our focus group's heart. Let's take a look at the best tested line of the evening.
Detroit is a great city with a magnificent legacy that has been utterly decimated by 60 years of failed left-wing policies. You know, Henry Ford revolutionized automobile manufacturing and brought automobiles to the middle class. During World War II, Detroit funded the arsenals of democracy to help us win World War II.
Raise your hands. So what is so positive about that? Did it connect to your heart?
Yes, Ted Cruz is a convicted conservative who understands what's needed in order to get Detroit back to where it was before. And I appreciate the fact that he pointed out the failed liberal policies of all those years.
Explain to me the clip.
I admit that Ted Cruz is a great debater, and he is absolutely right. Failed liberal policies have destroyed this city.
What was it?
We have family businesses, independent businesses here struggling, and he spoke directly to us and showed us how he can help us make it better and help us prosper and grow.
So what advice do you have to these candidates now? There's going to be one more debate before the next big vote. What advice do you have for them? Right there. Go ahead.
What Mitt Romney said that everyone should remember, the first few words he said was, "We Republicans." We Republicans. Trump always refers to the party as them and they. So we Republicans is...
What advice?
We do need to unite behind one candidate eventually, and providing the opportunity for people to know that we are about growth, opportunity, and prosperity instead of all this bickering is what people need to see, especially young people.
Right there.
We've got to quit the infighting. The only thing we're doing is we're giving more sound bites for the other side to show how poor we're doing.
So I want to do one more clip from John Kasich because he talked about the issue that not only unites Republicans, but unites independents and even conservative Democrats, and that's the budget. Let's play the clip of John Kasich absolutely scoring through the roof on what he would do to balance the budget.
And you have common sense regulations, lower taxes on individuals and businesses, and you have a fiscal plan that makes sense, the job creators will expand employment. And what happened? When I was there, the jobs were exploding. Bill Clinton's tried to take credit for it. When I went to Ohio, we're up 400,000 jobs. It's the same formula, but it isn't easy. I fought the entire Washington establishment and won.
So we had more people. That was. How many of you had a favorable reaction to that? Raise your hands. I want to end this segment with lessons for Donald Trump because so many of you, raise your hands if you walked in here supporting him. More than any other candidate, what advice do you have for him?
Well, as the general election nears, I think he needs to stop arguing and belittling other people.
What advice?
He needs to get on the issues, stick to the issues, and take a lesson from Governor Kasich and not take a bite out of those temptations.
Governor Kasich was very specific. He gave us tangible solutions. Mr. Trump has done things that have been good, but he needs to tell us what they are.
I would say don't back down and don't let the establishment run you over.
One more. What advice?
I absolutely agree with him, but to get the people that are undecided, I wish he would just be a tad more presidential, just a tad.
So this is legitimate messaging from people who support Donald Trump, who walked in here with the most voters of anybody, and John Kasich walks out of here winning this presidential debate. Megan, back to you.
Frank, thank you. Well, a pretty stunning moment unfolding toward the end of the debate tonight as each candidate was asked about supporting the eventual nominee. Our power panel of Guy Benson, Dana Lash, and Charles Hurt join us next on the pledges that were made and what that means in the coming weeks.
Can you definitively say you will support the Republican nominee even if that nominee is Donald J. Trump? Senator Rubio, yes or no?
I'll support the Republican nominee.
Mr. Trump, yes or no?
I'll support Donald if he's the Republican nominee.
Senator Cruz, yes or no? You will support Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
Yes, because I gave my word that I would.
I will support whoever is the Republican nominee for president.
Even if it's not me? Even though they don't deserve it. But the answer is yes, I will.
Well, you heard it here, folks. 7 months after we first put that question to the GOP candidates, each man on the stage tonight saying they will support the eventual GOP nominee, whoever that may be, with Mr. Trump adding his usual flair to the answer. So will this quiet the worries about a contested convention in Cleveland come July? Guy Benson is a Fox News contributor. Dana Lash is the host of Dana on the Blaze TV. Charles Hurt is the political columnist for the Washington Times. Great to see you all. Dana, let me start with you as a Cruz supporter, whether you think that's that. I mean, even Ted Cruz saying if it's Trump, I will support Trump.
I think it does go a long way, maybe in at least getting to the point where we're soothing some of the cracks in the right. I hope that Trump sticks to this, to the pledge that he made, because he kept kind of going back and forth. Yes, I'm going to support it. Well, they're not keeping their promise to me, so I don't know if I'm going to keep my promise to them. But I'm glad to see that they all answered yes. You have to be able to support the nominee. We have a two-party system right now. This is the only strategy going forward that's going to beat Hillary Clinton.
And yet, Guy, what we're hearing from some Republicans is never Trump. You know, Ben Sass, senator from Nebraska, saying, I won't support him. They're talking about the next 2 weeks could break the GOP forever. So what do you make of it, Guy? I mean, do you believe that the Republican Party will get behind Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
Well, I mean, some of them obviously will, and these guys all raised their hand at that very first debate. You guys posed the question to them, and they said, yes, we'll all support the nominee eventually, and they're keeping their word. What I thought was interesting about their answers there, each of them tried to really reprise major themes of their campaigns in that answer. Rubio attacking Hillary, and Bernie Sanders making the point that he runs strongest against them in the polls. Ted Cruz saying, I gave my word. One of his slogans is trust Ted. So, and then Donald Trump, I thought a very shrewd final answer for him, sort of laughing off this idea that it would be anyone but him, which was asserting that he is absolutely the front runner, which is unquestionable.
Charlie, what did you think of tonight's debate?
Oh, I thought it was marvelous. It was every debate that comes along, you think to yourself afterwards, it can't get better than this, and then of course it always does. And tonight was certainly no exception. And I thought that was a very shrewd question, because of course at the first debate, that question was very much directed at Donald Trump and whether he would stick with the Republican nominee, eventual nominee, whoever it was. Tonight, it was not directed at him. It was directed more at the others because of all of the dissension we've been hearing from these elected officials, these Republican officials who are talking crazy talk that they're going to give the election to Hillary Clinton by not supporting the Republican nominee. And I thought that was the big news out of the debate, was that they all said they will support Trump.
How did you think Trump did tonight?
I don't think it was his best performance. I think that, but that said, he was taking it from all sides. He had everybody up there was gunning for him, and and then the whole thing, the reference to his anatomy, was sort of one of those moments where everybody in the audience was kind of shocked. But I mean, this is the way people talk in America today, and it's almost kind of Shakespearean in the way that he makes these these puns. And I think, quite frankly, what he was trying to do when he did that, he wanted to close the circle so that everyone was clear exactly what Marco Rubio is talking about every time he talks about his hands. And maybe that will shame Marco Rubio into sort of pulling back on it. And if not that, embrace it.
There were some people who were very offended by that and thought it was inappropriate for the presidential debate. On the other hand, it's nice to laugh at these things and to break the tension a little bit, Guy.
Yeah, I mean, what I got a kick out of was Trump saying, I've never heard this thing about my hands ever before. Of course he has. That's the whole reason Rubio's been baiting him. He's been apparently and reportedly very sensitive about his small hands for years. And so it was clear that it was...
who runs Vanity Fair magazine, that's his magazine, has been sort of needling him on this for years, and Trump does not like it.
Yeah, and he brought it up totally unsolicited at the debate, bringing up his hands and then mentioning how it compared to other parts of his anatomy. Clearly an attack that's under his skin, but a weird moment. Yes, on a presidential debate stage that happened.
I know, it was a way to kick it off. But there was more levity, Dana. It wasn't all sort of mean and fighting. It started mean and fighting, and then it wound up being kind of funny. Here's the moment about yoga. Watch.
Let me point out,
not what you say in the op-ed. That is not what you said in the op-ed.
Donald, please, I know it's hard not to interrupt.
But it's not what you said in the op-ed.
Breathe.
Lion Ted.
Breathe. You can do it. You can breathe. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but just...
When they're done with the yoga, can I answer a question?
You cannot. I really hope that we don't see yoga on this stage.
Well, he's very flexible, so you never know.
Brett.
Pretty good. Even Ted Cruz seemed to like that one, Dana.
I loved to see the relationship there budding between Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz on the stage. I think that they tag teamed Donald Trump, not just in this debate, Megan, but in the previous debate beautifully. Whoever's advising them on that, that's what they needed to do. They kept the heat off of each other and they focused it on Trump. And it's amazing to me, we were bringing up what was getting under Trump's skin the most. He's more offended by it being said that he has tiny hands than the questions, Megan, you were asking him, which I thought were very apropos about Trump University. Here he could be having to leave the campaign to go to court for this fraud investigation into Trump University. That didn't seem to bother him so much as another man on stage, Cruz or Rubio, thinking that he was in some way physically insignificant compared to the other ones. I found that entertaining.
I do want to tell the viewers I have some news for you on the Trump University exchange. Trump came over to us after that break and brought out a Better Business Bureau accreditation notice for the Trump Entrepreneur Initiative, which is the Trump University was changed to Trump Entrepreneur Initiative because they got in trouble with the state of New York. So a new business was formed, but it was kind of a continuation of the old business. And this says that Trump Entrepreneur Initiative, on a scale of A to F, has an A rating. And he wanted me to show that, and he's right. That is sometime after 2011, and the business closed in 2011. But the point I was trying to make was, when Trump University was operating and got into trouble, it was given a D- rating. That was the last public rating we had. And then once he began it under a new name, it had this A rating. And so the viewers can make up their own minds about whether any of that matters. But obviously, that became an issue tonight because his competitors are hitting it, and it's going to come up again. Go ahead. I'll give you the quick final word. Dana can take it.
Trump University, Trump vodka, Trump steaks. I mean, he's had like perhaps one success with his properties, but I look at the string of failures. Look, I want to see a little bit more from this candidate. And he throws out the phallus joke as a deflection because he was having his backside handed to him during this debate. He did not win it.
I want a steak and some vodka. Is it just me? Is anyone else having that feeling?
I'm right there with you,
If you can't sell steak and vodka, Megan, if you can't sell steak and vodka, then you can't sell anything. Who goes wrong with steak and vodka?
It's great. It's great to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Coming up, Trump argues his negotiation skills will make him a great president. We'll discuss that with former speechwriter for President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen, and former Obama Deputy Press Secretary Bill Burton. Next. But the point I'm going for is you change your tune on so many things, and that has some people saying, what is his core?
Megan, I have a very strong core. I have a very strong core. But I've never seen a successful person who wasn't flexible. I will say, though, in terms of immigration and almost anything else, there always has to be some, tug and pull and deal. You have to be able to have some flexibility, some negotiation.
How flexible are you on this issue?
Not very flexible. No, not very flexible.
That was GOP presidential frontrunner Donald Trump stressing the importance of flexibility when it comes to negotiating on a key issue of his campaign to date, immigration. Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and Bill Burton, former Obama White House Deputy Press Secretary. Great to see you both. Mark, what was your big takeaway?
Well, so he's flexible with the New York Times editorial page, but he's not so flexible when he's out on the campaign trail talking to the American people. I think that's the takeaway from this exchange. I mean, this was I think he took a hit on his credibility as the guy who tells it like it is in this exchange. This extended discussion of the New York Times editorial page tape, where he reportedly told them that he'd be much more flexible when it comes to building the wall, when it comes to
Why should he release an off-the-record conversation? Doesn't that sort of chill the willingness of candidates to give reporters off-the-record conversations?
No, because I mean, I don't know that the journalists are ever upset about being on the record. It's usually to accommodate the.
Right, but the presidential candidates aren't going to want to give us off-the-record conversations if then they get hit. If somebody leaks it and then they get hit to release it, it just sort of chills the discussion, does it not?
It may, but it also should chill the discussion. The fact that he's supposed to be a conservative running for the Republican presidential nomination. He goes to the liberal editorial page of the New York Times and tells them, I'm really not saying, I'm not going to do all the things I'm saying, and then has a secret conversation with them, and then doesn't tell us.
No, they all have secret conversations with them. I mean, that's what the candidates do. Bill, what was your takeaway?
I actually think that Trump is doing the right thing by not asking the New York Times to release the tape. I think that once you get into that discussion, it's a slippery slope, and you're constantly being asked to do it. And I think your point, Megan, is exactly right. These off-the-record conversations happen all the time. The thing about Donald Trump is that his supporters have widely given him blanket immunity on changing any positions that he's changed. And so even this back and forth about whether he changed and how flexible he is won't have any impact on his support, because people have kind of made up their mind that, yeah, Donald Trump did all this business before, but he is who he is right now.
What did you think was the big moment, their big takeaway from tonight, Bill?
Well, the big takeaway is that Donald Trump is running away with this thing. And the thought I have is that the general election is going to be interesting, because the fight is going to be so asymmetrical between Hillary Clinton, a woman who has, been in public policy and government at the highest levels, and Donald Trump, who is, a circus act, for whom nothing is.
What did you say? Who is a what?
A circus act. for whom nothing is out
well,
of bounds.
David Plouffe was on here last night saying he feels for Hillary Clinton. This is the guy who got Obama elected twice, President Obama, because he says, you know, I feel for him, and there's no knowing how to beat Trump exactly. And
well, that's my point.
problem.
It's totally asymmetrical. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it is asymmetrical. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
But I think, you know, Frank's focus group said they didn't like the negative attacks, right? People never like negative attacks. People always say they hate negative ads. But the reason politicians use them is because negative attacks work. They actually move numbers. Now, so far, nothing has moved Trump's numbers. But keep in mind that the outside groups have spent about $240 million on super PAC ads in this campaign. $9 million of that has been spent on Trump up until now. So they've spent all this money attacking each other and very effectively lowering the numbers for those guys. But Trump has gone in, without damage. But now the attacks have turned on him.
Now it's going to be a different story. Gentlemen, great to see you both. We'll be right back.
You too, Megan.